Welcome to the Periscope Studios panel. My name is Ben Coleman. I will be your moderator for this evening. I was not sure who was or was not going to be on the panel, so I did not write introductions. So we'll go down the row and have everybody introduce themselves and also say what your favorite bird is and why.
Everyone starting?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Erica Moen, and I am best known for my comic I did called Dar, which was an autobiographical comic about being a lesbian and falling in love with a man and a whole bunch of dick and fart jokes. And currently I do a comic called Oh Joy Sex Toy, which is a weekly review of sex toys and other things that have to do with the very vast, wide world of sex. And my favorite bird is, oh golly, I don't know. I don't pay attention to birds. I like eating chicken.
All right.
Duck. No, I love duck to eat.
Okay.
Amazing.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Barlow. I'm one of the few only writers at Periscope, meaning I don't draw. I can't draw at all. These guys are magic. I do a lot of license books for Dark Horse, Death Clock, Mass Effect, Star Wars. Pretty much their go-to guy for that. And yeah, I guess my favorite bird is this one.
Uh-oh. Oh, nice.
That's not directed at anybody.
Nice.
It's going to be that kind of panel, is it? All right, then. Hi, I'm Kat Ferris, and I am one of the lesser-known artists of Periscope, but I may be known to you by my mini-comic series, Flaccid Badger. Yay, Flaccid Badger fans. But it's about a floppy, hungry badger and all of his crazy adventures in peaceful forest. And my favorite bird is probably the secretary bird, because have you guys seen those things? They are awesome looking.
My name is Paul Guinan. I've been bouncing around comics for a couple decades now. I worked for all the publishers, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse. I created Chronos for DC Comics, which was a lot of fun to do. I created Heartbreakers with my wife, which is a series that Dark Horse did back in the day, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary next year. And it's being reprinted by Comixology. You can find the early stories online right now. And then one of my latest things is Boilerplates, which is a departure from comics. I was just trying to push the boundaries of visual narrative. So it's more like a history kind of book. It's sort of like a coffee table thing. And my favorite bird, I guess I'm going to have to go with Ben Franklin's suggestion for the national bird being a turkey. Yeah. He and Jefferson had a huge argument about it. Should be the bald eagle or the turkey. So I guess I'll go with the turkey.
All right.
That's a good choice. My name's Ben Dewey. I work occasionally for major publishers drawing things like Planet of the Apes and Spider-Man. But I do a webcomic called The Tragedy Series. It's been my most well-known thing.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm starting, thank you. Oh, that's nice. I'm starting a project this year with Kurt Busiek that will be coming out for Image called Tooth and Claw that there will be some announcement at some point about, I like to draw animals a lot. I like to draw birds specifically, so choosing a favorite bird is hard, but the cassowary. Because its head is blue, it's got dinosaur claw feet, and its body is like an ostrich, and it's got a crest on its head. It's awesome looking. It's
And
beautiful.
it can disembowel a man with a single kick.
That's right.
Hi. I guess I could split the difference between the two of them. Woo!
It's in stereo.
I'm Terry Nelson. I am another one of the not very well-known artists of Periscope Studio. I am a backgrounder and an inker, and I do a lot of freelance illustration. I have a webcomic that I did for years under a pseudonym because I was teaching school and kids know how to use Google. And I was making fart jokes on the internet. So that's called Trixie Comics. And I'm also the intern coordinator for Periscope Studio. We have a pretty good intern program, so I'd be happy to talk about that more a little bit later. And I'm going to say that my favorite bird is the blue-footed booby, because blue-footed booby, man. Have you? They have. I just got back from the Galapagos, and it turns out that boobies have no external nostrils. They breathe through the inside of their mouth because they slam into the water at high speed, and the water would go right up into their brain and give them lobotomies if they had external nostrils. So they breathe. They have nostrils inside their mouth. So cool. So.
That is very cool. I'm Jonathan Case. I draw Batman 66 right now. I've done books, graphic novels like Dear Creature, Green River Killer, The Creep. So a lot of stuff for Dark Horse, but worked with a bunch of different publishers, done a bunch of paintings for McMinimans. So my favorite bird's probably the daddy emperor penguin, because, aw, takes care of the baby for like a long time. He's all awkward and not bird-like. I like that.
All right, let's start off with some slow ball questions. What do you really think of Jeff Parker?
I think Jeff Parker is a traitorous jerk. If anyone was around for the Stumptown Comics art battle, you know he turned tail on Portland and went back to his Carolina roots to fight against us.
And obviously, he's not here. He left the room. So
Yes, so
he is a traitor.
All right, I suspect people are curious about the internship program. You want to give us a rundown of that and how many intern-related deaths you have a year?
We have an internship program that it lasts for 3 months long. It's really competitive to get in, and we have every 3 months we pick another 2 interns to come and be with us and gradually get Stockholm syndrome. And so we spend that time basically, it's kind of like a finishing school for people that have just gotten out of art school. So it's sort of instructions on how to make enough money to live indoors. It's things like how to self-promote, how to have a web presence that other people can find. It's also a lot of, because we are a comic book studio, I only take people that do sequential artwork. So it's a lot of you sitting, drawing stuff, and having somebody who won an Eisner lean over your shoulder and say, that person's got 2 left hands. And so I think it's a pretty good program. People seem
We
to.
also teach people how to read contracts and
Right.
how to negotiate and how not to get screwed in a deal, and if it is going south, like how to talk about it. So like real world job applications to the business side of what we do.
Every one of us graduated from art school, or just started off having graduated from high school with like really strong portfolios and no idea of how to go about the business of being an artist. And colleges don't tend to teach you that sort of thing. So that's the tiny niche that we're trying to fill.
No, actually, after art school, there was a comic book company in Chicago that was looking for staff people, production artists, and I didn't have a lot of comic book continuity work at that time, but they hired me, and I learned my comic book stuff, production, and all the kinds of stuff that they teach from working at a company from the ground up, and it was I'm jealous of the opportunities now that kids have to learn this kind of stuff before they go out into the job world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I came to Portland because I heard it was a good music town and a good comics town, and I had been doing a lot of both in a sort of semi-professional way, but when I got to Portland, I didn't know about what had to happen next. I guess I thought if you just stood on the right corner with your doodle pad, a guy with yeah, you there, young man, you look like you got moxie. Come, I didn't know what I thought was going to happen, but I met Steve Lieber at Stumptown a long time ago, and he asked me if I, maybe could do some backgrounds. I thought he was just being nice, but then I found out about the internship program. I thought maybe I'm too old. They don't want to take me. But I applied, and it was like the difference between being somebody who's really enamored of a foreign language, and maybe you've seen movies in that language, and you have read a few books, but you're not fully conversant in it. And so when I got to the internship program, and I started trying to learn comics actively as a language, all of the things that I had done as an illustrator and a painter, which was my initial training, Steve told me that I was like a cargo plane that was just a little bit too overloaded. And you have to figure out what you can jettison before you can take off. And that, I think, is one of the things the internship program can do for an artist at the right time in their career. If they're ready to learn, if they're ready to process the things that they do well and have done well historically, and then determine which of those things are appropriate to move forward and which of those things they can jettison.
And even if you're not in a position to do an internship, as you found out, just coming to a show like this and meeting people and talking to them and getting advice from them directly is the second best thing you could do.
So as studio members and not interns, how often do you guys like cross-pollinate ideas?
A lot.
Whether you
yeah.
want to or not.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's basically a bunch of big open rooms, and so you can't help but be doing something, and then someone will come by and look over your shoulder and go, "Oh, what are you doing? That's really cool." You know, it would be even better if that dude had chainsaws for hands. Like, right? Why did I never think of that?
Yeah.
But a lot of us have collaborated. I know Jeff Parker and Erica Moen collaborated on Bucko, and Ben is actually helping me write a webcomic that I've been struggling with. So I really appreciate just being able to, throw things over the edge of my desk. Ben, you got to tell me, is this story idea worthwhile? Let's kick it around. And it's so useful.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is so nice. Just having somebody sitting, across the room or next to you. Sometimes I'll sit down there and I'll be stuck on a story idea, or I can't get this plot thing to work, and to just be able to turn to somebody and just say that, like, I can't. I've got to get these characters from point A to point B, and I can't do it. Everybody in there is so smart and so on their game when it comes to story that they might just throw out a suggestion, and it will not only solve all the problems, but will create other avenues to follow. It's incredible.
Yeah, all artists need a second eye or second opinion,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Or like 15th or 16th?
Yeah.
Like 24, 25.
No, I was going to say Bucko was inspired by the Periscope bathroom, right?
Oh yeah. The bathroom that I draw in Bucko is the ladies' room of Periscope Studio.
And it was inspired by like a question Jeff Parker was throwing around?
Oh,
Is
right.
that?
Yeah. Okay. So when you work with a bunch of other creative people, like we're all funny, smart people, and we come up with interesting questions to shoot to the whole room, which means like you just kind of propose a question and everybody will chime in with their 2 cents. And this question was before my time, before I came onto the studio, but it lived on, and it was, okay, wait, if you have to go to the bathroom, wait, are there children? Can I swear? No? Okay.
I don't see any.
All right,
Yeah.
Okay.
so like you are going to have diarrhea, like it is going to happen, and you burst into the bathroom and you find a dead body on the floor, like murdered. What do? Do you take care of your business first and then you call the cops?
Well,
or
wait,
do you go
it-
to the cops first and then like you're gonna have the business? So like that was.
The body's not on the toilet though, right?
Oh, I don't know.
I think in Bucko it was in the stall. It was
Yeah,
knifed
you
in
have
the
to like
stall.
step
so-
over the body.
In Bucko, it was on the floor. But
Okay.
the question, I don't think is that specific. I mean,
Okay.
it's just like there's a dead body and you are about to shit your pants. So
Yeah.
what do you do? And it was when Parker and I decided to work together. Like he keeps a note. He's a writer. And he keeps a notebook of just like these one-offs that come up in the studio because there's lots of little questions. I think like for a long time you guys had who would win, a caveman or Shaolin monk?
Yeah,
Yes,
who would
that
win in
was-
a
that
fight? That's
divided
still,
the whole studio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no one knows the answer to that. Ben is actually king of the like completely off the wall question.
Well,
So-
I used to ask Natalie Nurgat a lot of bizarre questions to derail her productivity, just so the rest of the human race could catch up. I'm doing us all a service
Yeah.
in that way.
She's a machine.
She
Yeah.
is. But she's in France now, so in her face.
Yes, that's
But
right.
yeah, I'd ask her a lot of questions, not along those lines, although more surreal than
There was
scatological.
one about garden gnomes. I remember.
Oh, yeah.
That actually made her angry. I can't remember what it was now.
Well,
pretty
so Parker keeps a notebook of just like bits of conversation that come up that caught his attention, and so then when we teamed up, he was like, "I can finally use this in a story," and he put all of it into Bucko. It's quite a read. I'm selling it at my booth at 1013, the Periscope booth.
All right, on a related note, can you explain the wall of guns you have in the?
We don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
Those-
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead. Oh.
Well, at the studio, we have a collection of all kinds of unusual things that are used as reference. So we have a wall of guns, because a lot of people use guns in comics. We also have an impressive collection of die-cast automobiles, because who knows when you need to have an ambulance as a reference. And these kinds of things are much better than looking up on Google image search, because you have the three-dimensional object there that you can change and pose in light in different ways. So actually, most artists in their studio have funny little toys or reference objects like that.
Paul, can I tell the story about the time you came in exhausted to borrow a gun?
Oh, please, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
We're on the 5th floor of a great big building in downtown Portland, and Paul came in and had been doing an all-nighter and was just wrecked. And he needed a specific type of handgun for reference, and so he called down to see if we had one, and we did. So he came in, just like bags under his eyes, and picked up the gun and said, "Okay, thanks everyone. Okay, see ya," and walked out holding the gun. Like, we all just sat there silently for a moment, and then finally somebody said, "Somebody go get him!"
Yeah, there are also 2 banks, one right below our building and one right across
Yeah.
the street, so that would have been really bad.
Yes, there's actually a security guard that stands outside on the corner doing his little Bane impression, just standing there.
It's pretty much just because of us, right?
Yes.
That's why they've hired him.
You know what's great about that security guy though? It turns out he's a huge comics nerd, and he's been like, and he's been
Yeah.
looking up all of us on the Periscope website. And,
Yeah.
And he had a comment for you the other day.
He feels that I need to update my headshot.
Yeah.
It's too old.
That was so sweet. And like when the first time I was talking to him, he's like, "You did some illustration work on," and he listed this title that I hadn't worked on. I was like, "No, that wasn't me." I was like, "You're thinking of Joel Jones." He was like, "Oh, that's it." And it was just like, it's really cute. He's a big old
Very
comics
cool.
nerd.
That's adorable. We call him Solid Snake.
And my wife couldn't remember that, so she started calling him Jake the Snake, and then that became Snaky Arms. Yeah.
He has a big snake on his arm, right?
Yeah.
it's a
Snake tattoo.
Yeah.
So you guys also collaborated on the calendar for this?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
The,
that's right.
the like 15-month calendar or 16-month?
That's right.
Has anyone seen it?
The Rose City official
Okay.
calendar for the show.
But what do you often get large like studio-wide commissions like that?
Every once in a while.
Yeah, it's a rare thing, and when it does, like, I think it's the most exciting thing possible for Steve Lieber. He's kind of like our studio mom, but he also loves to coordinate big jobs because he's like, yes, everyone in the studio can make tons of money, and then he lords over it. Like, I don't know, Steve is really good at organizing things and making sure that all the parts go off without a hitch. So if we do get a big job, usually Steve will be the go-between and then just pass out work to everyone, and the studio turns into a giant work machine. It's
Yeah, the
very
calendar
nice.
was, we were specifically approached to do the calendar by Rose City. They wanted to do a conjunction thing with Periscope Studio, so all the artists in the calendar are all from Periscope. However, they've now partnered up with Emerald City in Seattle, and they do a book called Monsters and Dames, which is a curated thing where the people submit work. And because Periscope's awesome, we wind up dominating that book. Just about half of Periscope is in that book in any given year.
Let's see. Sorry.
I have one other thing about
Yeah.
the calendar. I might as well just like, my drawing for the calendar was picked for the Rose City Comic Con's official T-shirt. So, it's that giant squid eating the steel bridge. So it's selling out. They told me. So
Very cool.
Nice.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. Good job, Terry.
And was that the one in the movie theater preview thing?
Yeah.
yeah.
So I believe the program promised that we would go through a day in the life at the studio, which let's do that.
Roll in about 11 o'clock.
Well,
Yeah.
I can
That's
tell you what
you.
happens
No,
there before.
I'm not there at all now. What are you
No,
talking
no,
about?
that's true.
So typically, I would say that the first person there is either Terry Blass at around 7:30,
Really?
or
'Cause
Dylan
Colin
McConus,
works when he catches
because they both have spouses or partners who come downtown early, and so they just get a ride in. So Terry is there typically working away when I get there at around 9 o'clock or 9:30.
They get a ride in because a little known thing about cartoonists is that none of us can drive.
Speak for yourselves.
Wait, how many of us right here don't drive?
I just got my driver's license.
Did
so
you?
No, I
yeah,
drive.
Okay, I don't drive.
yeah.
I don't drive.
So yeah, then Steve Lieber comes in, usually in his workout gear, and goes down to take a shower before he gets ready to start the day. And by that point, I'm at my desk. Hunter Clark comes in around that time, sometimes Dustin Weaver, and everybody just files off to their desks. And then I think at that point, almost everybody else starts coming in shortly thereafter,
Yeah, Ben-
around 10 or 11.
Ben usually has headphones on by that time and is scat singing at his desk. So
Yeah, I blow in around noon. I do like a noon to 6 thing.
Yeah. And then usually between noon and about 2, people will suddenly realize that the reason they can't see straight, think, or ink a straight line is because they need to eat.
Yeah.
So people start getting lunch, and we have a big communal lunch table in the main room of the studio. People will just sit down and pull up their lunch and talk about, either projects they're working on or how their day is going.
And directly across the street from the studio is one of these entire block large food cart pods. So we have this amazing selection to choose from.
Which is why we're also known as Fat Old Periscope.
Yeah, Fat Old Periscope.
I was going to say one of the things that I like about that main room, and most days, and some days it can be really difficult to navigate. Like if you're frazzled and you're trying to work on 5 or 6 projects or whatever, you're managing your time. But I was thinking about it the other day, and I realized that I wouldn't know much of anything that's happening in the community of comic book artists and writers at large if it wasn't for the conversations that I overhear about Twitter and interactions people have had at shows where they traveled to get there. So you get this, it's an aggregate of all of the experience of all the different members coming in, and you can tune it out like I do sometimes with putting on my headphones and listening to Cosmos for the 90th time. Or you can occasionally, it's hard to make that choice sometimes because you take off your earphone and then suddenly you hear about some project months in advance of everybody else knowing about it. And so you're in on the ground floor of lots of cool stuff, and sometimes dramatic or sad stuff. But
Yeah, we have 24 people at the studio, but there's only about a dozen at any given time. I don't think we've ever had a day where every single member has been in the studio at the same time.
Oh, that's
It's like
Terry
pre-con stuff
Dodson is a
sometimes.
mystical unicorn.
Yeah,
He
Terry
does
Dodson
that
is.
very
We
much.
see him maybe once a year when he comes into Portland for his haircut.
Yeah.
Does he only get his haircut once a year?
I don't know.
He's
That's
superhuman.
what I've been led to believe, but I don't know if it's true. It always looks really short.
Yeah,
We
I
only see
know.
him after the haircuts.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, we have no idea. Like I said, mystical unicorn.
We might not recognize him without it. Yeah.
Like,
So-
he's been among us the whole time.
That's right, that's right.
He's just only visible one day out of the year.
That,
Terrifying.
now I'm looking at Ben differently.
Yeah.
Wait a second, yank.
No,
Yeah.
he's an artist who I liked for a really long time, and I badly wanted to meet him. And long after I had extinguished my nervous freak-out fandom for just about any other people on the planet, I still was nervous about Terry Dodson. And he's a super nice, easygoing guy, and he told me some story once because I asked him a question, like, you're in a room full of people you admire, and I still admire everybody very much, but I've gotten more casual with everybody.
Familiarity breeds contempt.
Yeah, that's right. So I asked him, how do you split your work life and your personal life? And he said, well, there was a time I was working on Harley Quinn, and my right hand just started tingling, and it just wouldn't work, and so I just finished it with my left hand. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. He's like, it's all up here, right? And Rachel's a really good inker. I was like, oh my God, stop. Yeah, but like people of that kind of level of talent, where they've internalized the language of comics and the process of drawing to such an extent that with their offhand, he could finish. I've seen this run on Harley Quinn, and it's not like he's slacked off. And Jesse Ham, one of our other studio members, he can draw with 2 hands. Jesse Ham is like ambidextrous, and I've really tried to get him to call himself ambidextrous online, but he won't do it. I don't know. You gotta help him
We'll
out.
all
Okay.
bear down on him so we
All
can
right.
make it happen.
So the rest of the day at the studio, what would you guys? I'm sorry.
Well, eventually, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, Ben Dewey will lean over and ask Ron Chan, Natalie Nurga, and myself, so, say you met the person that you desired to be with most in the world, and then they take you out on the first date and reveal to you that they have a Quato. Do you still want to be with them?
What's
And-
a motto?
Like the
Remember
psychic
from Total
alien
Recall?
from, yeah, okay.
Where
Little
like
Siamese
they meet
twin
the
that you
guy,
wear
like
over
the
your
real
shoulder.
ugly dude. Open your mind,
Yeah.
queen.
And he's the romantic one. That's when it comes out.
Yeah, that like
So
that.
it's a Cyrano de Bergerac Total Recall.
Yes.
Yeah.
My Periscope schedule is a little bit different. Since I write, I need more isolation. So I only come down a couple days a week, and I keep kind of weird hours. During the week, I get down there at about 2 in the afternoon and stay till about 8. And then I've been coming in on Saturday, which is really nice. Traffic's not quite so bad. I get there at about, 4 or 5 in the afternoon and leave at midnight or 1. So it's Ben Bates and Dustin and I
Lots of people who haven't seen the studio assume that it's like some enormous Wyden and Kennedy style, like, palace. It's tiny. It's a rabbit warren. He's exactly
Oh,
right.
yeah,
We're,
it's a mess.
we're all kind of stacked up right on top of one another. So as visual artists, you can talk and yell and continue to draw without it being too much of a problem. But for the writers, it's, it's difficult to write when everybody else around you is talking.
Except for Jeff, he seems to be able to walk around in stocks with his
I
laptop.
don't think he does any
I don't think he
actual
actually
work. I think he
writes.
just browses the internet while he's at
Oh,
Periscope,
really?
Yeah.
puts his feet up on his desk.
That's his secret.
Tells other people that they need to be drawing better. You there, fix that pose. You got a tangent.
Everyone has a role to play. You're right across the street from some food carts.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
a good location.
That's right.
So I see, yeah, Batman 66 over there, I think. Have you kept track of how many like superhero books the entire studio is working on at a given time?
No.
No, it sort of fluctuates. There was some years ago, I think it was in the first half dozen, maybe fourth year or so of the studio's existence, we had on staff the regular monthly artists of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, and the Fantastic Four, all coming out of our studio for about a year.
That's crazy. That was
Yeah.
before my time, I
Yeah,
think. Just
that
before.
was, and Wizard didn't give us one write-up about it.
Oh, here's the note. I don't know. I forget if we covered this or not, but so we all work in the same studio together, but we are not employed by the studio. We
Right.
are all freelancers. We are all independent. We all make our own money, and it's just that we pay rent, and collectively that money goes into a big collective pot, and that covers the rent for the studio, and then if there's stuff on top of it, we have like some big fancy equipment that I would never be able to afford on my own. Like we have a room of Cintiqs. By a room of Cintiqs, I mean we have like 2 or 3
Yes,
Cintiqs
two.
and like 2 or 3 giant oversized scanners. And we subsidize that. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the
wall of guns.
Yeah.
Oh, and a wall of guns.
Same room.
They're airsoft. Don't call the police or anything. It's fine.
They have the orange tips on them.
Yes, they're plastic.
And we help subsidize that in addition to the rent that we pay as individuals. We also have this Etsy shop where, I'm not saying this is an ad, I'm just saying this is how we function. But an Etsy shop where we can all donate our sketches, our illustrations, extra signed comps that we have of a book we've done, donate it to the Etsy shop, and then it gets sold that way, and the money made from that sale doesn't come back to us, it goes into the Periscope, I don't know, is War Chest the right name for it?
Fund.
Sure, why
Yeah,
not? The
kitty.
general fund.
Yeah, and we use that to buy printer ink, because we also have printers, and to buy pizza for the intern parties, and so, yeah, that's.
And it's kind of nice to have that there if any of us are having a lean run and rent becomes a problem. We got a
Yeah.
little bit of a cushion, we can help each other out.
That way
Yes.
the whole studio doesn't go
Yeah.
down the tubes just because one person was unable to pay
Yeah, I
rent,
mean, for
so.
all of us, since we're freelance, it's feast or famine
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go long stretches without anything, and then other times you're just completely swamped.
Yeah, it's essentially, up till now, it's essentially been a co-op, but we are working right now on turning it into an actual business and
I
LLC.
think
and all that.
we're officially an LLC now.
Okay, there it is, done.
Yeah.
You had a question back here?
Yeah, just more about the business. I wasn't sure if you just got commissions and they all just went in on your good part or something, but the notion of paying rent that also encapsulates these other needs for the studio makes a lot of sense. I just want to thank you for talking about that, and if there's any more that you want to say about the business end, because that is so interesting.
It's a benevolent dictatorship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, there's a few key people who set it up in a way to really encourage other people to flourish and be able to, like we were talking about, have their lean months. And so everybody just kind of looks out for each other's best interest. There's not a whole lot of structure, though, around, like, say, a big job comes in where we're all going to be jumping on board. It's just kind of luck of the draw of who's there that day. Somebody might have an idea that so-and-so needs work and kind of shoot them an email. But the miracle of it all is that because I think a few key people set the example of the attitude around all of that, it's like the best example of communism that I can come up with. Like everybody really just shares the wealth.
Yeah, I often describe it that way. It's the closest thing to functional communism I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it's because there's a couple of things I think that are helpful in terms of both as a business and as a group of people who have more of a family-like relationship than just about any group of that size I've ever encountered. So the nice thing is that we have a plurality of skill sets. So if a job comes in and they say, we want people who can draw like Adventure Time, how many of your studio can do that? Then there are probably 10 different people whose skill set overlaps, and those people will be asked if they're available for the job. You know, the nice, or you know, it's like if you have to do something that's more like, I don't know, you know, Al Williamson, where, you know, can you draw this vintage style strip? Then there's a number of people who can do that. The nice thing that I think allows a studio to function in this kind of hippy-dippy commune kind of way is that just about every personality, even if we have disagreements, everybody has a high degree of empathy and a willingness to interact with one another and give each other the benefit of the doubt. And if you don't have the right sort of personality to be accommodating and to trust each other and to, in those moments where you may have frustration with somebody or a disagreement, come to a point where you can, you know, resolve those differences maturely and equitably, then people just kind of filter their way out and they don't stick around. But I think that lets us function well as a business and as a group of people in a small space where we're on top of each other.
Yeah.
Within that framework, would you say is it still competitive, or is it?
Oh, that's what I was about to say, was that
Yeah.
we are, I mean, everybody tends to look at everyone else's work and go, oh my God, you're amazing, and then try to up your game because that's what you're looking at all day long.
But it's that's the self-competitive thing. It's,
Yeah.
it's not, we're not in direct competition with anybody
Nobody's
else.
cutthroating.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, a lot of the jobs I think that we get are handed off by somebody else who, and I don't think of it as a thing where you're giving somebody a job because they're your friend. Typically, you're in a room full of people who you are both friends with and who are functioning on a high level as an illustrator or a sequential artist, and you give them the work because they're the best person you know.
For that thing, and no,
For that
absolutely. I've run into things where I've had to hand something off, and I have specific people in mind because they will match the client's needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
My very first professional job was actually given to me early on in my studio time by Colleen Coover, who was just too busy to do it, and
Yeah.
my style was on a similar vein to hers, so she's like, hey, Kat, you want to do this illustration? Yes, I do, thank you, that's awesome.
Yeah, the thing about being able to pass on work is that when a client comes to you and they say, can you take on this job? And you say, oh, I'm too booked up right now, I can't do it right now, but call me back in the future. All they hear from you saying is, I am a dead end. And then
Yeah.
they like write you off forever because like you couldn't do that job that one time. But when you can say, hey, I can get this job done for you even though it's not by me, then you are still an open door.
Right.
Yeah.
You're a
And-
resource, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the job still got done, and your name was somehow associated with it. You can actually do it.
Yeah.
So that's a really handy thing about having all these other people that you can give work to or you can take work from.
Yeah.
I think it helps that we don't have a creative director. There is no
Yeah.
authority figure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, but when a big job comes in, like usually
Somebody,
60%
but they're a
of
job, they're like a
hazard.
producer.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah,
But we don't have like a someone.
yeah.
Okay, and then I guess, so how often is work coming into the studio versus people going out and pitching to people?
Oh,
I suspect
everybody's always pitching.
Yeah.
Yes,
it's-
always,
it's-
constantly.
Yeah.
Each
We're
one is a
freelancers.
constant in its own way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that there's sometimes this overlap with that too, where, you know, you might be in the process of pitching something to somebody, and then it turns out that they have a job that they want you to do.
Yeah, or vice versa. Sometimes you'll be working on a job for somebody and an opportunity to pitch will come
Yeah.
out of that.
Mhm.
And I think that's well, I felt most confident about my value to the studio once I could pass jobs on to other people or include people in jobs. So instead of me just waiting for Steve Lieber to save my life every month, I could say, hey, I have this gig where I met this client and they may need something from us, and then I felt like I was contributing to this institution that had given me a lot. And on a regular basis, I think all of us have that thought process somewhere in the back of our head where, you know, if, you know, no matter what level of skill we're at, the studio provides something different and we all want to contribute.
Yeah, and like people, if they have a specialized skill that they can contribute to the studio, like I'm really good at shipping stuff because I ship all my own merchandise.
Mail, not characters.
Oh.
Or-
Well, and I have my system in place, and once a week on Fridays, I send out all my orders. And when when we started talking about the Etsy store, it's like, well, I can add the studio's orders to my orders and just take care of that. And then I keep a tally, and at the end of the month, I say to the studio, okay, I spent this much on postage that you owe me, and then I get reimbursed that way. But like, that's how I give back to the studio. And then, but here's the thing, I really hate listing things on Etsy. Like, oh, I freaking hate it. So I think Terry Blass is now in charge of that.
Yeah.
And you know, he doesn't mind it. That's fine for him. So he steps in and he takes that role. And then there's other things.
Well, Terry does the intern program.
Yeah,
Terry
I have a teacher credential and a master's in education, so it seemed like that was kind of, it fell kind of naturally over to me to.
It is like a hippy-dippy commune. People
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Yeah.
assign anything, really. I mean, people see a need or a hole, and it gets filled in an organic way that I've not seen in other situations.
Most of the time, nobody washes the dishes.
It's just
Except for Steve,
Weaver.
and
Yeah.
occasionally Terry or me, because we're right next to the sink, and it's
Yeah.
most in our faces.
Yeah, you got, that's
Well,
nice
the
because you
question
guys are
is,
tidy.
who leaves the dishes? That's what I want to
Ron
know.
Randall.
I am gonna
Ron
start.
Randall.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
start
No hassle
keeping
there.
tabs.
Get him.
I'm gonna watch.
I'm gonna say Jeff Parker because he's not here.
I'm just gonna say it.
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, it's Dylan. I think we can all come to an
I
agreement
wouldn't
about
have
that.
thought.
Yeah.
The rest of this panel will be dedicated to figuring out this problem with the dishes. Actually, oh, yeah, go for it.
On the dishes, a really good solution for that.
Uh-huh.
Everyone gets a clothespin with their name on it. Put it on your dish when you're done. Then you know.
Someone will go in and just move the clothespins around.
It's true. David Hahn would put them all on like one dish.
Yeah, there's
There's pranking in the studio.
Oh, let's talk about
yes.
that.
Oh, good lord, yes.
There's a lot of pranking. Like, okay, so David Hahn is like the #1 prankster of the studio, and like this one time for a solid month, he'd go and he was lowering everybody's chair incrementally.
That was him.
Yep, that was
That
David.
was David Hahn. And so, and like he's always pulling stuff like that. And so recently at the last Stumptown Comics Fest, we came in and there's this metal coat rack, and all the hooks were off of it. And Colleen had gone to hang the thing on. She was like, "What happened to the coat rack?" And everybody immediately was like, "David Hahn, he's pranking us again. We're gonna, you know what? It's too far. It's too long. It's his turn. We're gonna get him. We're gonna get him good." And then like Steve and Jeff Parker concocted this plan where David Hahn has a huge light box, like it's really giant, and they unscrewed it and took the top off of it. And then Steve Lieber very carefully, like he went through a couple different drafts of this, but he cut out the perfect penis on just the right density of paper, because he had to tried some other papers that didn't quite work out, and then like 3 droplets, because the droplets make it storytelling, according to Jeff Parker. And then taped it inside and reaffixed the screws so that when you turn it on, like it looks normal until you turn it on, and then it's like the bat signal. And so there's all this, everybody's like, yeah, getting David Hahn, woo! And Dewey comes over and he's like, "What's going on, guys?" We're like, "We're getting David. Do you see what he did to the coat rack?" And Dewey says, "Oh, that wasn't him, that was me. I needed the pole for my display at the convention, but it was too late."
yeah, they're
It
like
was far too late. We were all
Like,
like, "Shut
sorry,
up,
dude."
Dewey. We're in the middle of something."
yeah,
Go.
wheels in motion. Too late.
But then David Hahn got us in the end, because it took him a month to turn that thing on. So then for a month he would come in, and everybody in the studio would just like get really tense, and be really quiet, just like watching him from across the room, and like, "Did he do it yet? Did he do it yet?" And then when he finally did, it was over the weekend, and nobody was here.
The irony is that I was the only person in the room when he did it. It's like, so I'm sitting over there. It's like I wasn't the beneficiary of the. I was the initial target, even though they didn't know. And then I was like, "Hey guys, it's not David. Like he's a monster." And so
You
then,
were
of
the
course,
puppet
I'm
master
person to
here.
witness it.
How long did the chair thing before anyone noticed?
Oh, we didn't. He
He had to tell you?
No, he came in and he stood in the middle of the room and stared at all of us and was just like, "I can't believe any of you. You're supposed to be artists. You're supposed to be paying attention to things." And we were all like, "What?"
Yeah, I just thought my brand new chair was dying.
So going back, how did the studio get started, and what was the sort of modus operandi behind that?
I think it was in 2003. David Hahn took the initiative on this. He contacted me, Steve Lieber, and Ron Randall, who had just wound up a previous studio called Studiosaurus. It also had Matt Clark in it, so we brought Matt Clark in. So it came out of an outgrowth of this previous incarnation, just folding, and then there being a fallow period for a couple of years where there was no studio in town. And David just wanted to get some people together and share a space, all chip in for rents, and have a place where you just didn't feel so isolated. Because most freelancers, they're working in their house out of their little studio, and you go stir crazy after a while. So it just started out as a simple thing where it was just half a dozen people, just sharing what, in comparison, the space that we had before was huge, and for only 6 people, it was really a nice setup. And so it wasn't there wasn't even the kind of collaborative thing that's going on now, where we're sharing resources and we're pooling money to buy equipment and stuff like that. It was literally just people sharing a space, and that's all it was. And then people started to join. Jeff Parker moved up from California, and more and more people started to arrive that we liked and wanted to get in on this thing. And then we moved to a new space, and then we started getting serious, and then we started the internship program, and then the floodgates opened. So it started. And actually, also the other thing, back in 2003, it was originally called Mercury Studio, which was an appropriate name because it turns out that Mercury is the god of commerce and the god of art. So as far as I'm concerned, he's the god of commercial art. So
It turns out it was a terrible name, though, because it turns out there's
this because of the Mercury Weekly here in town.
Yeah.
You become
So
unbelievable.
when we moved to New Digs, and Jeff Parker initiated the name change, and that was interesting. That went on for months trying to figure out, because by that time we had more than a dozen people was in the studio, and to try and get more than a dozen people to agree on a name, it's pretty impressive. So we went through.
It was not good.
We went through a lot of permutations, and then we wound up with Periscope, and then it just kept snowballing. It just got more and more people started adding, and we started to actually tear down walls. The new space that we moved into was at the end of this corridor, and it was just this one office. And then we tore down this one wall, and it was an L shape. And then a few years later, we tore it on the other wall, and now it's like a U shape. So even some of the writers, like Jeff, will sit in the far corner of one of the U's. You guys are in sort of
I'm on the other end
you're
of
sort
it,
of
yeah.
around the corner from the main room, so you're not getting, so that you can sort of have a kind of.
They have a can
little
with a
bit of
string.
quiet.
They
Call out if they need something.
Right. And it's actually an interesting kind of setup now because it's like there's like a couple of little mini studios in one studio. Because it's become so
Their
spread
names.
and sprawled.
Oh, yeah. We have names for the
Yeah, we all
different
have
sections
names.
of the studio.
Yeah.
Barlow sits in Red Square because they recently got together and painted it, and it looks really classy now with red walls. And then next to that,
Following up on the communism thing.
yeah, totally. And next to that is Lonely Town, which is where Terry Bloss, Ben Dewey, and myself kind of hang out.
Oh.
And then what's the main room? Is it
It's just the main room.
just the
Yeah.
main room?
It's just where the cool people are.
I call it the hub. Yeah.
You call it a bunch of things.
I call it, I curse its name.
Yeah.
No, it's great, but it's the flurry of activity. So it's like
Yeah.
if you're going to be in the main room, if you're going to be in the hub, you got to have, be quick with the jokes, and you got to be ready to have people looking over your shoulder all the time and munching loudly next to you. And then Jeff Parker, Colleen,
It's
Jonathan,
the eye of
Rich.
judgment.
and Rich, and Paul are all in the eye of judgment. Yeah.
Yeah,
Most
so I think
frequently
we-
heard emanating from
mean,
the eye of judgment is, what? Stop that! You guys knock that off right now! I'm just saying.
Right. We're the older, crankier section of the studio.
One of the nice things about the studio now, as opposed to, I was the second female ever to join the studio, and it was very, very heavily weighted towards the masculine side when I joined. So now it's almost, I think it's 50-50.
I think it's 50-50, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
In fact, ladies might even be winning at this point.
yeah.
Yeah, go team boobs.
And the way the space is structured, we have one more wall we can still knock down when the tenant leaves. So there may be yet a further expansion sometime in the future.
I think we'll just start spiraling
Yeah.
down.
Eric, could we knock down the wall into we have a room next to us. It's like a storage room. We call it the Silent Hill room because it looks like, well, I have to pick a place in here to do a murder there. It's got flickering lights and.
Actually,
wires.
we won't be able to break down that because that
the
contains.
boiler room.
It contains.
Yeah, but we can take out that
But
lawyer.
the other you, the lawyer.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
The lawyer.
Yeah.
All right, we have 10 minutes for Q&A, and then I have to run over to Kelly Sue DeConnick's panel because I'm moderating that, and she will kill me if I'm late. But we're going to do the Q&A a little bit differently than you may have seen. I've got a randomly selected pile of dollar comics that I'm going to pass down the row, and they will give out a comic to a question if they hear a question that they have not heard before that isn't gross.
That isn't gross.
Yes, it can't be a gross
So
question.
we each take one.
You take one, and if you hear a question that you haven't heard before, you can hand it out to the, or they can come up and get it.
Oh, that's
Yes.
Slayer.
So,
good.
Wow.
who wants to go first?
Cool.
Oh,
What a cool.
we'll do the microphone, I guess.
Okay, so I know you guys said that you guys just kind of collaborate on a lot of the studio type projects and things. How do you guys handle graphic design type of things for the studio? Or does the studio have those kind of needs?
You mean like logo design and?
Yeah, like logo designs, web type stuff, banners, things like that. Do you guys just take it on yourselves, or?
Well, there's 20 artists or something like that. So some of us have more of a graphic design background. Jonathan Case.
I don't, but I do
Is-
it because nobody else did it.
Yeah.
So.
Dylan McConis actually was in commercial art.
And she likes typography.
Yeah, yeah. I did commercial art for years before I moved to Portland.
Yeah,
so-
I did ad agency work for a long time doing product design for General Mills, Cheerios, and that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And I think because there's so many of us and we all know a lot of people, you can outsource for things. So if you need motion graphics or you need somebody who's really good at typeface or making videos, you can find somebody affiliated with the studio.
Cool. Awesome.
I've
Thank you.
actually never heard that
All
question.
right, there we go.
Yeah.
Silver Surfer.
All of us suck at Illustrator for the most part, so.
Yeah.
Cat's good illustrator.
Oh, Kat can do it, but,
All right.
but and do you love it?
No.
Oh, this is so nerve-wracking.
More nervous than you
For Erica Moen, actually, I started reading Dar years and years ago, and I wanted to say that kind of reading through that and following you through your exploration and journey in your sexuality and in your relationship really helped me kind of figure out what my deal is. I grew up in a very strict religious household, and that kind of thing was, don't talk about it. So thank you. It really, really helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Girl, thank you for reading.
Yeah.
But also, I am an aspiring artist, and I don't have any sort of art school background. Is there any kind of market for an illustrator competing with, people who have classic training?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
do not
absolutely.
need to be professional. You don't need to have paid tuition to get that education
Right.
in order to compete with somebody else. Like,
Yeah.
you can just put in the hours
Yes.
and become a good artist
Yeah.
on your
Yeah.
own.
Start putting your stuff
Yeah.
online and
Yeah.
soliciting feedback from people you respect that are doing what you want to do and
There's a
get better.
good web page that somebody's been passing around called Don't Go to Art School.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think if you Google those words,
Yeah.
you'll find it, and it's all about, like, here, just put the hours in, and
Yeah.
here's the things that you need to study. And here are a bunch of lectures that you can download.
Mhm.
And
Awesome.
'cause school is expensive.
Yeah.
Oh,
Are there any Periscopers that are doing portfolio reviews at the island?
I'll
You
do
are?
'em,
All
sure.
right,
I can
and-
do one too.
And usually in the
Or two.
program, there will be something that says portfolio review. Get
Yeah.
your stuff over to professionals, and you know what? Even if they say stuff that totally crushes you, and that will happen.
yeah.
Just say thank you and take it into consideration,
Yeah.
and just get that feedback. And not all the feedback you get is going to work for you, or even going to agree with the other feedback somebody else gave you. And it's
Right.
about picking and choosing what works for you, and building up that way. But yeah, you do not need to go to art school. I
Yeah.
didn't go to art school. I went to a liberal arts college, and I didn't even look at the art departments of the colleges I was applying to, because I was like, artists can't support themselves, so I'm not going to be an artist. And then I got to the college, and I was like, shit, I really want to study art. Anyway, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you don't need to go into tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt for an education that may or may not actually
Yeah,
help you.
yeah. Whoever's going to hire you is going to be looking at the work. They're
Yeah,
not going to look
it's
at the
your
letters
portfolio.
after your
Oh,
name.
yeah, no one has ever asked to see my degree.
No.
I might as well not even have one.
I will speak up for some of the things that happen in art school.
Yeah.
Because I think that the thing to note, the caveat that comes with you don't have to go to art school is you should be in a position where you are skilled and savvy at analyzing what goes on in any given piece. And one of the things I got out of art school that was great was the ability to talk about work, to talk about my own ideas effectively, and to honestly self-assess what it is you're doing and what goals you have and how you want to proceed. And the nice thing about a place like Periscope is that you get that. You have that opportunity. So the more community you can establish with people whose work you respect,
Yeah.
and have an honest, open dialogue with them, then the even further minimum amount of time you'll need to spend in an art school will be reduced even more and more. So, but you need that. That's a crucial part.
Other nice thing about going to art school, although it doesn't feel nice at the time, are the critiques.
Yeah.
Because everybody starts off as an artist feeling like, my God, that's my emotions, that's me on the page. And if somebody criticizes it, you're like, oh my God, you hate me. I hate you. And so art school beats that out of you.
Yeah.
But you can get the same sort of thing by having a bunch of peers that you respect who are also artists and actually getting together and doing like work groups and stuff like that together and listening to one another. And then you gradually build up a skin and realize that if I'm going to be a commercial artist, it's only partly about me. It's mostly about what the client wanted.
And they will ask you for changes.
Yes.
It'll happen.
Yes.
And you have to be willing to roll with the punches.
Yeah, I think one of the important things that they don't tell you when you're starting out is that it's so important to develop your voice and your point of view and to understand where you're coming from. You know, Erica has done so well because you are reading who she is. You know, and it's not really enough to be able to just draw something cool. You know, people are looking for that individual thing that only you can do. Yeah. And you might not look like, you know, like I know that there are people out there that want to draw like Jim Lee, and they just don't. You know, what they do is amazing, but they don't recognize that because they think, oh, well, this is what I want to do, not this is who I am.
And even that goes even beyond any kind of technical thing. It also speaks to like the storytelling and your concepts, your ideas. Even if you're not an artist, if you're a writer, is do something that speaks to you that you are passionate about. Don't try and calculate what the audience wants. Don't do a piece where it's like, okay, I'm gonna now throw in some vampires because that's what's hot right now. Don't try and do that. Don't try and second guess. Do what you think is cool, and hopefully the math of it is that other people out there will also think it's cool.
They'll pick up on that passion.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's how you keep yourself from getting fired.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you could be at the point where you're a really amazing illustrator and you're drawing Hellboy or whatever, but if you didn't create that character, you can always be replaced. But on some level, Mike Mignola can't be replaced because he came up with that thing, for better or for worse. And so, you know, like, it's true that establish your voice, be pragmatic about it, and like what Erica does.
For anybody that is in college of some sort or education system of some sort, take business classes if you are interested in doing a creative line of work as your profession. Because I spend like 1% of my time doing the art, and then 99% of the time is doing everything else that goes with running your own business. So I really, it's so much fun to study art, but that's like eating dessert. What you have to do is you have to go out and take classes that have nothing to do with art, because it somehow it always winds up being beneficial to the art anyway. So take some business classes. I hate math, but maybe take one or two of those and stuff like that.
Do we have any other questions, you think?
We have,
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, so much. We haven't
Oh,
had
yeah.
that one yet.
Yes. Here. We have a comic for you. Come on, get one.
I have one question. It's really quick. There we go. But
Spider-Man.
that's running itself.
There.
So just a heads up, I'm gonna duck out, but this is going so well, I think it can kind of just moderate itself.
That's true.
How do you guys decide the hours and days that you work at the studio?
That's a good question.
That's, it depends on the project. It depends on, like, a deadline is the ultimate motivator for a freelancer. So you have to determine how fast you draw, what the extent of the drawing that you have to do, and calculate it based on that. And then you can set your own hours. I mean, if you want to do 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. as your shift, then fine, as long as you're going to get it in on time.
I don't recommend that. I mean,
Yeah.
part of the reason that, I mean, not to contradict what Paul said, because in some cases, some people, when they get to the point where they have proper amount of self-control, they can function in that context. But if you can make your unorthodox job slightly more regular by setting regular hours for yourself, you will get more done.
You'll also be saner.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every intern that we get through there goes through some sort of thing about like, I don't need sleep.
Yeah, some people are like,
I'm
I'm a
nocturnal.
night person. It's
I'm like a vampire with an
hey,
ink pen.
you know, like, well, I'll tell you who's not a night person. The people who are awake and who can write you a check for $1,000 for 2 days worth of work. They are awake at 9 a.m. and they're sending you an email. So if you are asleep until 6 and you wake up bleary-eyed and you're like, oh, Huffington Post, and then, oh man, you know, like Hunter Clark, one of our studio mates, he for a long time kept a stopwatch around his neck where he would, if he stopped to talk to you, he would stop the stopwatch, attend to you in whatever question you had, start stopwatch again and start working, so that he would get a full 8 hours every day.
Yeah.
So that's what one other thing I like about the studio is that it's like it allows you to pretend that you have a normal job. So you go in and like, you know, you 8 to 6, there you go. You know, like so that's what I like. That's how I decide what to do. It's like some normalcy.
So he needs a comic.
Yeah.
You want to come up and get a comic?
This may be unnecessary. Probably could have just projected, but I'm up here now. So I wanted to ask, I'm a freelancer myself. I'm always working by myself. And I wanted to ask about, for the writer, what it's like actually being around other people and what kind of feedback you get in this environment and how it differs from just
like
working by
day-to-day
yourself.
kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Or, well, I can only do certain things at the studio. You know, like different stages of writing require different levels of concentration, like, obviously. So if I'm editing or I'm you know, like I'm working on a second or third draft of something, I can come down and work on that because it is very, the atmosphere in the studio is very boisterous and there's a lot, you know, there's a lot going on. So if it's something that I can just sit down and sort of like have my attention pulled away, I can do that. But if I'm, you know, if I'm breaking down a story or really writing dialogue or stuff like that, I have to do it from home. But what specifically do you mean in terms of like at the idea stage or?
Yeah. Would you maybe hear something or would you bounce things off of? I mean, you guys said you're always pitching to each other. Do you get a lot of early ideation going on?
Well, usually the way that it works, at least with me, is I have a general idea of what kind of story I want to do. You know, and I do a lot of contract work. I do a lot of video game tie-in stuff. And so I'll get an assignment. You know, I'll get an assignment to write an issue of Mass Effect or something, and I'll be assigned a character. And then it's up to me to come up with what that is all about. So sometimes I'll go down and I'll talk to, I usually stick to the cluster that I'm in the room that I'm in. You know, there's Hunter and Ben Bates and Dustin Weaver and Ben Dewey that sometimes wanders over. But I'll come in and I'll say that this is the, you know, this is the general idea that I have, and this is how I see it going. And sometimes just the act of verbalizing that and hearing yourself say it, you can start to see the holes in it, or you can start to see avenues that you hadn't thought about if you're just sitting and taking notes or whatever. And sometimes, you know, like we talked before, I'll say something to Ben Bates, like, oh, I want to have this, I want to do a story where this particular thing kind of happens because this is a theme I want to explore. And Ben will go, oh yeah, that you know, that reminds me of this other story I heard, or have you thought about doing something this way? And it's not always a case of like, I'm not coming down and like looking for ideas to steal or to take, but just to have a sounding board. It's very helpful. It's really helpful. And also what's helpful is just getting out of the house, you know, because I'll go, my wife is really great. If I'm home for more than like a 5-day stretch, she's very kindly will come up and say, you should go to the studio tomorrow.
That's exactly what my wife tells me.
Yeah. So it's, you know, it's challenging. I can't work full time down there, but I go down 2 days a week just to have that illusion of going to work and being around other people.
You know, when I have to write a script, I go down into the basement.
I've done that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, we have a conference room in the basement. And sometimes Ben and I have gone down there just to brainstorm stuff.
It's just you and the cockroaches.
What's that?
I said it's just you and the cockroaches.
Yeah, there are cockroaches down there, and the beer that I take with me.
Well,
So yeah,
thank
does
you.
that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I have more questions for you, but I mean, I don't want to.
Oh, we can talk
panel's
after the
over,
panel.
I think.
Yeah, I'll be around.
I mean, does somebody else need this room, or? I mean,
Somebody keeps
Okay,
peeking in. So
we need
should
to
probably-
we need to
we're
wrap
all
this
over
up.
at the
But
Periscope
yeah,
Island,
come
if
see
anybody
us
else
booths 9, 11, and what 10:13.
That's right. If you have your calendar, you can just bring it there, one-stop shopping, get all the signatures.
Yeah.
Thanks, you've been a lovely audience.
Yes.
Yes,
Who wants
thank you.
comics?
Yeah, who wants a Punisher comic? I don't need
I
it.
got Sans
Free
Metropolitan.
comics.
I'm keeping this one.
All right.
Yeah, take, that'll get given away.
I'm gonna leave this one.